Everyone, this is the Board of Commissioners meeting for Radnor Township starting on Monday, February 22, 2021, starting at 6:30 p.m. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any consent items that any commissioner would like to pull? Hearing none, I will move for the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. I think that was 7-0 in favor of the consent agenda. Moving on to item 3, committee reports. 3A, GPX-200 South Ithan Avenue conditional use decision. I'm going to start by asking Solicitor Rice to give us some information about this. I will then make a motion.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner
you know
Law.
what? I apologize. I skipped over public participation, John. Before we get into the meat of the meeting, let me just ask, are there any attendees who have public comment to give before we get into the rest of the meeting? I didn't see any raised hands before, but I want to call it out. Okay, seeing no raised hands, John, I apologize for interrupting you. The floor is yours.
Okay. As the board's aware, you held a hearing in January on the GPX conditional use application for the property at 200 South Ithan Avenue. And a sworn testimony was taken at that hearing. And what is in front of the board tonight is a proposed decision and an order which would approve the conditional use application. A little bit of background on this, because there may be some folks that are just tuning in regarding what's a conditional use and what is a land development and what the difference is between the two. A conditional use is a use that's in your zoning ordinance. It authorizes a particular use in a zoning district under the zoning ordinance. It's not a land development plan. It's not a subdivision plan. It's a proposed use subject to the terms and conditions that are in zoning, really looking at the zoning for the particular use. When it's a conditional use, it puts that decision in front of the elected body, whether it's a board of commissioners, a borough council, a board of supervisors, and they in effect act like judges, like a zoning hearing board would, taking sworn testimony and evidence. The board fulfilled that role at the one hearing that was held in late January, and they have an obligation to render a decision within 45 days of the end of the hearing. So that's what's in front of the board tonight. And the conditional use, as I said, is a use which is a first step along a process that if this is approved tonight, there'll be a land development plan that will then be processed, where it becomes more of a compliance issue with subdivision land development ordinance and to a lesser extent zoning. What was presented to this board was a proposed density modification plan, which is a permitted use in the R2 zoning for 9 single-family dwellings on a new cul-de-sac that would come off of South Ithan Road as part of a larger project called Trianon, which was approved in the mid to late 80s, I guess, finally approved. This is one of the lots that's being redeveloped. It was a large lot, housed a mansion, which burned down about 7 or 8 years ago. And the current owner and developer is proposing to continue the density modification plan. So it's a zoning issue primarily. is the 9-lot subdivision in compliance with the density modification requirements? You're not approving a subdivision plan or a land development plan. That would be the next step. And that is in front of the Planning Commission, and ultimately that comes back to the board. There's more details, there's more engineered plans. There's more issues that arise during a subdivision land development application and process. So the board's role is, as I said, judges, you're bound to approve a conditional use plan unless you have a specific legal reason not to approve it, such as minimum lot size, type of housing, setbacks, things like that that are in the zoning ordinance, not necessarily in the subdivision land development ordinance. So what's in front of the board then is a proposed decision. And what I'll do is just read through the order from that proposed decision and see if there's any questions from the board for the proposed order. So the proposed order then, and I'll just read this. And now this 22nd day of February 2021, after due deliberation and discussion at a public hearing, the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners does hereby approve the conditional use application of GPX Development LLC, subject to the following conditions. Number one, compliance with all applicable requirements of the Township subdivision and land development ordinance. Applicant's conditional use plan is a representation of how the use would be developed, and this order does not constitute an approval of that specific plan. Number two, condition number two, construction of a 5-foot sidewalk from the existing sidewalk located along the frontage of the Agnes Irwin School along South Hyphen Avenue to its intersection with Meadowood Street, as shown on the attached aerial map. And there's a aerial representation of the stretch of sidewalk attached to the order as part of this decision. Number three, condition number three, the foregoing sidewalk construction is subject to acquisition by the township for any necessary construction easements or areas outside of the public right-of-way. Believe that Mr. Norsini believes that this can be constructed within the existing public right-of-way, but there could be some easements necessary out that. In the event that the township is unable to acquire any of the necessary construction easements or additional right-of-way such that the sidewalk cannot be installed by the applicant, the cost of the design and construction shall be contributed to the township in a dedicated sidewalk fund. The sidewalk cost shall be escrowed with all other public improvements prior to recordation of an approved final plan. And condition number four is compliance with other applicable county, state rules, regulations, and statutes. There's other outside agency permits that this project will need to pursue, like any other project dealing with water, sewer, et cetera. So you basically have four conditions as part of this order. The primary condition is the requirement of the sidewalk. The board has copies of this proposed decision and order, and that's what's in front of the board tonight. Is there any questions?
I'd like to make an amendment if I could, or at least propose it.
Okay.
To change from, and I don't think 7 lots is going to work, but I'll compromise with moving from 9 lots to 8 lots.
Heard a motion for amendment. Is there a second? I hear a second. All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of majority. John, do you need a motion and a second in favor of the opinion that you just, or the decision that you just read, or is this something that you'd just like us to vote on as a, I don't know, a quasi judicial body?
No, it's just it's a motion and second.
Okay.
And then I would do public comment in between there. If there's anyone that wants to make public comment on this particular item.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to move for the opinion as the decision as it was read by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, is there any commissioner comment on the opinion as read by John, including additional proposed amendments?
Yeah, John, what's the status of the sidewalk on the new unnamed street?
The status of the sidewalk is that I believe there's been a request to waive the sidewalks. It's not in front of the board tonight, of course. But the plans do not show sidewalks around the cul-de-sac. And quite frankly, that's a subdivision land development issue. There's other waivers that I'm aware of regarding that plan. And that'll be back in front of the board to deal with in that context.
Yeah, but why would they put that on after this? If this is approved for conditional use, why would they put another sidewalk along the street, the new unnamed street?
Because they have to go through land development.
Because it's a requirement under SALDO, Rich. This is a separate approval.
Well, then why don't they put it on now then? Why would they leave it out?
That's their
Obviously,
call.
they don't want to put it on.
Well, you're going to have that discussion during the subdivision land development process.
I think that my concern is that by approving it this way, that they're going to say, no, you approved it without the sidewalk.
Well, that's why the second sentence of condition number 1 says that the conditional use plan is a representation and this order doesn't constitute an approval of that specific plan. They have to put some kind of a plan together to show how the use could be developed. That conditional use plan is not fully engineered. You're not approving that specific plan. They've got to come back with a fully engineered land development plan. And if they want sidewalks waived or anything else waived, they're going to have to meet the standard at that time.
My experience has been that they'll come back and say, no, it's approved without it. We don't need to put it in, but hopefully you're right. What about the issue that I raised of making this a private street? I'd like to see this street not be dedicated to the township and not be the responsibility. This street is really only to serve the desire of the subdivision and the developer. It's not a street that the township would crest it or that would be in the best interest of the taxpayers to maintain. So I recall that I wanted to make this a private street. So if that's not in there, I would move to make the new unnamed street a private road not dedicated to the township.
Is there a second to the motion to amend?
Oh, second.
All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Okay.
Nay.
Guys, we don't need to condition their approval on our not accepting the dedication. We can just not accept the dedication later on if we don't want to.
I don't know. I mean, John, is that the fact? And if that is the fact, again, why wouldn't we make that clear now? It just doesn't make any sense. We'll have so much less leverage later on. It doesn't make any sense.
Condition them we can't prevent them from offering us something. We would be conditioning their approval on us not accepting something. We don't usually condition approvals on the township not doing stuff.
It's a land, Rich, it's a land development issue. Every new road is offered for dedication. And the township has total discretion whether or not to accept it as a public. There's no appeal from that decision. So it's just an issue that's not really appropriate for this conditional use hearing. It's appropriate for land development, just like the sidewalk issue is. So you'll have another opportunity
Well, I've been doing this for 7 years now, and I've heard we have another opportunity many times, and there really never is another opportunity. This is our opportunity. And again, I don't understand why we would not make these issues clear now, and then not have them be an issue. They can agree to whatever they like right now. So we could have this part of the conditions, and I don't know why we wouldn't. So I'm not satisfied letting it wait until land development.
Is there any additional commissioner comment?
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. So as a jurist, I'll first say that I have mixed emotions with this. I understand the neighbors of Trianon, what they want. They don't want to look at that eyesore, and I respect that very much. And you know, I get it. But I want to look at the whole township as a whole. So I understand that aspect, but from the township as a whole, I remember I asked, I said, would those new homes, would they affect the school district and the township budget? And I was told how great it would be and how much money they would add and all this great stuff. But when they did their homework, and it's all obviously on record, they didn't do their homework and realize that our schools are overcrowded. So even these marginal amounts of new kids, eventually there's going to be a tipping point or a breaking point where we're going to have to build a new school. So the marginal amount that it creates to the budget, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, is negligible if we have to build a new school. So the answer that I got, I wasn't satisfied with, because the person that was doing the information or getting that information was just like typing it in. This is the standard, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't ask the questions. He didn't get the answers from the school board of, hey, the schools are overcrowded. They're more than full capacity. Can they handle even one more student potentially? So based on that, not doing that work, saying how great it is on one end, it's just, it doesn't work for me. And I heard the gentleman say, well, these are assumptions, these are, you know, we're going to use your assumptions, but we couldn't use his assumptions. So it was just, it wasn't an apples to apple comparison. So with that, I'm going to have difficulty voting for this. And it's not that I don't want to get rid of an eyesore. I think that you need to look at our schools and everything in aggregate. And I don't believe that the developer and his engineers and whatnot did their due diligence.
So if I could comment, I think the characterization of the fact that the neighbors don't want to look at an eyesore is not accurate. You know, the property itself certainly has been a nuisance property. The house that was there has been demolished as part of the agreement with the neighbors that this board was all fully part of, when we also, you know, sued them, I guess, or I don't know, had a legal judgment against them to secure back the funds that we had used as a township in order to maintain that property for so many years. So now there is a new owner, a new property owner. That property owner has come in and worked very diligently with the Trianon HOA and the residents of the HOA, because this will be part of that HOA, to not only, you know, put forth a development that I think is going to be harmonious to the existing development. They, you know, as I said, worked very hard with the group to put those plans together. I'm sorry, I'm having major computer issues this evening. So to say that it's an eyesore and that the neighbors only want to get rid of an eyesore is completely inaccurate. 100% of the Trinon HOA all voted for this. The developers also worked with the neighbors across the street to try to address their concerns. I think that also to continually characterize the fact that our schools are overcrowded is not an accurate characterization of our schools either. And I don't think that that is something that we could deny this conditional use anyway. And I think the most important thing to realize is that, we need to be prudent when it comes to making this decision. And certainly, there are, concerns about development, but, it is a property that I don't think anyone ever had any illusions about that someone would buy and put another beautiful giant mansion there and it would be one home. That's just not, something that's feasible in this township anymore. And I think that the development itself is something that, will be, again, harmonious with the neighborhood. It does still need to go through land development. There's still a lot to be decided when it comes to this. And, the neighbors will be involved in that, as well as, certainly the Board of Commissioners and planning and all these other groups. So, I can't see any legal reason or any, reason I think that would stand up, if the developer decided they wanted to challenge us on a denial, that is something that we have, that we can stand on. And that is why I'll be voting to approve this and then looking to work with the developer to move the project forward in the best way for the neighborhood and the township.
John, thank you, Lisa. John, is my reason grounds for denial that I'm just not happy with their type of data? Why not?
No, because it's your personal opinion. If you had somebody that testified and said, this subdivision, an expert testified and said, this project is going to overwhelm our school system and will require us to build a new school, that would be a factual basis that you could, potentially deny a plan. But personal opinion, I provided some of the case law to the board regarding conditional uses. There's got to be a specific ordinance or law that they are not in compliance with in order to have any grounds to deny conditional use. Personal opinion or what you think or what you like or don't like to cover the houses, the size of
it's not based on that, but if there's work that wasn't done to get a better count and a better number, I'm calling these people's expertise into play at this point. I can only take their word that they're an expertise until I hear their testimony and hear what they have to say and hear how they get the numbers. And if I am unsatisfied with how they get their numbers, can I call their expertise into play, or do I still have to accept it?
You could call it into play, but you asked me this when you started, are the legitimate legal reasons upon which a plan could be denied? And my answer is no.
Okay. Because again, getting back to that and to what you said, Commissioner Borowski, my son in 5th grade was in a breakout room. His room didn't have a window. The window looked into a hallway. We have trailers and whatnot. That was in 5th grade. My son was in a breakout room. In 4th grade, he had 27 in the class instead of the minimum 25. So I'm just looking, and it's not that I don't want to get rid of this. I'm just looking at, where's that tipping point where we have to build a new elementary school or build a new middle school, like in Lower Merion, and you have to pay, $50 million, $100 million. I don't know where that tipping point is, but everything is immaterial until it all adds up. So between this and all the other cases that are down the pike and everybody wants to build, I think that eventually this board, that we need to put our foot down and say enough's enough. Because again, I believe that, it's definitely going to be unsustainable on our education standpoint. I could go on about the Board of Commissioner or the Township standpoint, but I think I've said enough. So, thanks.
Okay. Is there any additional commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Looking to the attendees, is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of approving the decision as read by John Rice, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-3. Moving on to item 3B, 780 Fawn Hill Road, waiver of section 245-22 spot A of the Stormwater Management Ordinance. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have with us today the sponsor of the application, the applicant?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. Mr. Cohen, is it Mr. Cohen?
Yep.
Excellent. Could you tell us a little bit about the application?
Yeah, so we have an existing deck in our attached to the back of our house. And we wanted to replace it because it's getting close to end of life. And so we proposing or we worked with a contractor to actually come up with a deck that's actually slightly smaller than the one that we have. Also aware that that we have to meet the stormwater regulations, and we're big proponents of that. Unfortunately, we couldn't pass the infiltration test, and that's why we're here seeking a waiver. We had our engineer discuss with Mr. Norsini potential ways to mitigate the runoff from the deck, and proposed a solution with a set of rain barrels that would collect some of the runoff directly from the downspouts and control the flow, the outflow of water from the barrels. That's about as technical as I get because I'm not an engineer, but so we're hoping that will that the board will feel that is an appropriate mitigation strategy to account for the area of the deck.
So just to clarify then, as I understand it, you're saying that you're planning to reduce the overall impervious cover on your property, but because the way our stormwater ordinance is written, you are still required to provide sufficient stormwater management facilities as if you were not making any reduction at all. You were just installing the new deck from scratch.
Correct, that is correct.
Okay, so even if you did absolutely nothing, forget about the barrels, forget about anything else, if you did absolutely nothing, you would be reducing the impervious cover on your property.
Correct, slightly, yep.
Okay.
Mr. Cohen, do you mind me asking how much? What is it now, and what is it? I don't have my
Yeah, hold on one sec.
I don't have my agenda open.
Yeah, give me one sec. It's not significant, but it looks like it is about 55 square feet, yeah, difference.
So I will say, typically when you have whether it's a rain barrel and it's just seeping into soil that's just not good soil, I would typically vote no on this, but you are reducing it. And I think that we should commend anybody reducing the impervious, that type of footprint. So I'll actually I'll support this.
Mr. Cohen and I had a good conversation the other day. You will recall that this property came in front of us a couple months ago with another property on the same night, and we heard about the other property's remediation efforts and approved that waiver. The Cohens had not yet done any plans to offset the stormwater, and they went back to the plans and took a good look at it. Their engineer came up with a good solution. And I really do appreciate that the Cohens were willing to be patient and try to fix the issue and help us with our stormwater management problem. And hopefully this will be approved tonight so that they can go and start the building of their new deck. So you have my support, Mr. Cohen.
May I ask, what is the surface that is of impervious surface that's being removed?
You mean the area of the old deck?
Yeah, what impervious is being removed? You said there's 55 square feet of impervious surface. What type of surface is that that's being
Oh,
removed?
okay, it's a wood deck.
So Commissioner Booker, the existing deck is, if I can add in, is 637 square feet. What the Cohens are proposing is 582 square feet. So there's the reduction. Our ordinance, unlike others around us, does not provide any credit for a reduction of impervious. So if we did, the Cohens wouldn't even be here tonight because they're requesting to put back less than they're removing. Also to note, at 582 square feet, their seepage bed would have been designed to accommodate 1 inch of water over 82. It's a very minor amount because it just creeps over the 500 square foot limit. So the seepage bed would be doing 1 inch of runoff over 582 square feet. Lastly, although not required, they are offering to give the rain barrels. The ordinance just states the applicant must appear before the board and make the request of a waiver. It doesn't require any mitigation of any sort. So I just want to throw that in there.
The deck is not considered impervious surface, is it?
It is.
But it's pervious though. Does it have a patio underneath it? Does it have stone or something? Or is that the general? I mean, a deck, water goes through a deck.
Our ordinance looks at decks as impervious regardless of the distance between the boards across the deck and regardless of what's beneath it.
All right, so presumably deck, there will be just a couple of piers and footers, and then it'll be a deck that will, the water will go through and then be absorbed to the ground underneath. Right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I guess the other thing, Steve, if it would have been just a 500 square foot deck, it wouldn't be before us at all, right?
You're correct. This just went over the 500 square foot limit by 82 square feet.
So Mr. Cohen, why are you doing 82 feet extra in the deck? It's not that much. Why not make it 500 square feet?
I don't know if that will fit the shape of how we pretty much modeled it mostly on the existing deck, except we were able to shave off some part of it, but it extends across the whole back of the house. So I don't know that it's possible to reduce that.
Well, it's a deck. I'm sure you could reduce it. I would recommend you come in with 500 square feet or less, and then you wouldn't be subject to this, and you wouldn't have to go through this approval. And I mean, I kind of don't. The ordinance is you have to provide for infiltration for the amount over 500 square feet. You're really not doing it. The rain barrels don't get it done. And as Commissioner Fari talked about, this is an accumulation of waiver after waiver after waiver for years. I've been, again, doing this for 7 years, and everyone comes in for a waiver, and then also comes in when there's stormwater issues. So the way to avoid this whole review would have been to have 82 square foot on 500, where you would barely notice. In any event, I That's my questions. Thank you.
Are there any additional commissioner comments?
Yeah, Steve, if Mr. Cohen's property would have perked, what's the, I mean, ballpark of cost for stormwater for that type of project?
Commissioner, I honestly don't know that off the top of my head. Obviously be at least a few $1,000s. There would be a pit excavated. You could use a couple of different items in the pit. It could be stone, it could be container type items. I don't have a cost. I have to actually work those numbers out.
Okay, well, I mean, my point being, and Mr. Cohen, this is no fault of yours. It's just not fair to residents who have ground who perks and they have to pay the cost for this. And if your ground doesn't perk, you can go put 2 rain barrels on and call it a day. If we're going to continue to pass these, we just have to get rid of this ordinance.
Is there any additional commissioner comment?
The other alternative would be give everybody a waiver. Right? If we're going to give it, we should give everybody a waiver, whether you perk or not then. So if people want to do it, they should be able to do it. But to say by circumstance that you happen to have a yard that perks and then somebody doesn't, you're treated unfairly relative to your neighbor who happens to have ground that doesn't perk. So I agree with Commissioner Abel.
Okay.
Well, let me just respond real quick to Commissioner Booker. Commissioner Booker, I agree with you like 80-90% of the time on this, but I think that there are specific instances, and I vote with you not to allow these waivers 80 or 90% of the time. But I think that you need to look at this on a case-by-case basis. Here, the guy is actually making the footprint smaller, so he's actually making it better than what it was. If I'm just saying, but if that wasn't the case, I would not have that vote.
And I understand and I appreciate your concern of this issue as I have. And, I understand. And I make the point that it's a deck. It's not even like it's a patio that's impervious. However, it's a matter of fundamental fairness, government applying the rules equally amongst all the constituents. So it's a governmental process and principle item. So that's why I feel strongly that we need to remain principled on this. I'm happy to give the waiver to everybody, but let's make it available to everybody, not just on a case by case.
Yeah, but we live
Rich, the waiver is part of the process. It's written in there that you can seek a waiver. So it's part of the process. And we do take it on a case by case basis to determine whether or not it's feasible to allow the waiver. I think in this case, you've helped to, it is just a deck. It's wooden with slats. They're putting in the rain barrels. It's a smaller footprint. They've followed all the rules up until tonight. They got sent away. They made it better. They've come back. And I think that this is well within the process because waivers are built in. You can see.
Understood. And I understand your point. Again, I think on balance, the better point is that we need to have a consistent application of the rules and treat all of our taxpayers equally. Another neighbor down the street could come with the exact same situation and we would require them to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 extra that were not in this case. And to me, that's an issue of fundamental fairness. And we should not be picking winners and losers amongst our taxpayers like that. We should give everybody the waiver or make everyone comply. So I feel strongly that the higher governmental purpose is to have uniformity as provided in Pennsylvania Constitution to all of our neighbors. So I feel strongly that that's a necessary thing. So I understand your point. I understand Commissioner Fari's. And it's perfectly reasonable. We just disagree.
Rich, let me just say something to address your issue and Commissioner Abel's issue. I agree with you, and if you want to go so far as making it a part of a UNO to sell a property, that you test the soil sample. I don't think it's maybe that big, that expensive of a test, so they know where they are when it comes to rainwater and getting getting these waivers. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. It's easy to do. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's one more thing that you would add to the sale of a house. You just put it in the UNO. Do you have your smoke detectors? Yes. Do you have carbon monoxide detectors? Yes. Are your sidewalk blocks good? Yes. All right. Check the soil to make sure that you know what you're buying, because you may or may not be able to get one of these waivers, and then everybody's on a level playing field. I don't think it's that difficult. Suggest it to the solicitor. Talk about it with the engineer. But I agree, because I think that we do give too many of these waivers. But I think that we should look at ways to address it, not say get rid of the waivers, but say, but not penalize people that have good soil or bad soil as a flip of a coin. But by saying, if you're going to buy this house and you're going to buy this property, know what you're buying, especially when it comes to stormwater, because that's one of the biggest issues this township faces.
Okay, guys, we've talked about this for a while. Is there any staff comment?
Just to address the commissioner's concerns, by DEP requirement, we're going to be bringing forth to the Board of Commissioners a stormwater management ordinance in some short time. So my suggestion is all the concerns you have with the current ordinance, we can look at when we bring the proposed stormwater management before the commissioner.
Is there any public comment? Seeing no raised hands, I'll call the vote. All in favor of granting the waiver, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5-2. Mr. Cohen, thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Cohen.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to item 3C, adoption of ordinance number 2021-01, authorizing the current refunding of the Series 2015A and Series 2016 bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $9,785,000. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Tate, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. President. As was introduced 2 weeks ago, this is the bond parameter ordinance to be adopted before you tonight for a vote to be adopted. As mentioned, it's the refunding of Series 2015A and 2016, aggregate amount of $8,420,000 with a projected savings of $38,000 to $40,000 a year. In the aggregate, a little over $580,000. This does not extend the life of the bonds. The bonds will be refunded and be paid and amortized over their current existing life. So we're not increasing the length of the debt service. We're just looking to realize some savings on the favorable interest rates at this time. And we have several of our professionals here tonight if there are any technical questions that the board may have.
Do we have any commissioners?
Yeah, I have one question. Bob Tate and Bill White, once again, excellent job. Like, you guys are totally rock stars when it comes to this. This, as I saw in an email, this doesn't hurt our credit rating. It helps us. Looking down the road, because we are looking at possibly having to issue more debt for or bonds for other township issues. Does this allow us to raise more money without affecting our credit rating? So we could maybe take on more endeavors when it comes to either fixing our infrastructure or purchasing land for open space, et cetera. I mean, does that add to 5 million or 10 million that we could take out more in debt without affecting the credit rating? Obviously, you'll do the math knowing whether or not we can afford it or not. That's my question.
So I'll start, Bob, fill in any blanks that I leave. First of all, I appreciate the credit for all these refundings, but the interest rate market really is the driving force. We just have some help with our professionals who are out there looking at those rates on our behalf, and then, bringing this to our attention to make sure we're not missing out on opportunities to save some money. To answer your question, it's obviously Moody's calculation in terms of a rating is pretty complex. When you read the ratings reports over the last couple of years, the one consistent thread in there, we have an excellent credit rating and it has remained the same, and they've listed us as stable. But one of the areas that they continue to zero in on is the amount of fixed cost we have as a ratio to our revenues. So obviously debt is just one component of a lot that goes into that calculation, but anytime you can free up some of those fixed costs or bring those down, assuming revenues are level, you are improving that ratio. So there's no absolute, if you do this, then you get that. I mean, the bottom line is going to be how much can you afford to borrow? And that's ultimately what's going to drive those decisions here at the township level. But as we reduce the amount of fixed costs to our operating revenues, that would improve the ratio. This one, in terms of some of the other refundings, this one doesn't move the needle as much as some of the other ones. It's a little bit smaller, but every dollar counts.
And can you just tell the people at home how much we're saving because of this?
Yeah, Bob, I'll let you.
Right now the savings are projected roughly $38,000 to $40,000 per year, or over the remaining life of the bonds, it's about $580,000. And I'm sorry, Bob, as a percentage of the net present value of the refunding do we have that number handy? Sorry to put you on the spot. It's just, that's usually our trigger to whether or not we bring these decisions to the board, is if we're going to meet that threshold or not. And I believe this one was pretty far in excess of that trigger. So it was a pretty easy decision to bring it to you. It's just that the annual savings aren't as big because the issue itself is not as big.
Mike have it.
I know Michael Wolf has helped prepare a lot of the analysis here. Michael probably has it quicker at his fingertips. I do know it exceeds our 3% threshold.
It's 6 to 8%. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it's more than twice the GFOA target.
Thank you, Michael.
So my question follows along with Commissioner Fari. I guess the point is this in any way using debt capacity that we might foreseeably need in the next year or two based on our capital projects planned and other expenditures? So is this in any way hampering our ability and our debt capacity? And is there any concern about that?
No, in fact, if anything, it's improving our debt capacity. It's freeing up that money per year to pay for additional debt, all other things being equal.
And because it's a refunding, the debt principal in essence is not increasing. And as the manager mentioned, the savings realized does improve the cash flow and our overall.
I've forgotten. So this is not an advance refunding?
It's an advance refunding.
No, Bob, it's 2 current refundings.
Current, I apologize. Current. Go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's 2 current refundings that both have the same call date in June.
Okay, so this is not an issue of decreasing available debt capacity under the statute.
Not at all.
And it enhances our ability to pay debt service in case we do need, in these very unusual times, to go into the debt market over the next year or two, even for large numbers.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, again, I always got to qualify it, with all other things being equal. I mean, if revenues are the same next year as they are, in prior years, then yes. But if revenues go down, then we need that capacity to help fill that gap. So that's why I just say all things being equal.
If you don't mind, your borrowing capacity under state law is extremely high. That's not the limit on how much new debt you can increase. The limit is the revenue and the ability to pay. But nothing statutorily is getting anywhere near limiting your debt. It's your ability to sleep at night and your comfort. That's what's limited.
Thanks. My question was based, it's obviously based on the interest rate when you have to pay back the principal and the interest, what $38,000 gets you. Obviously, you don't know that if you take out a bond a year from now or 2 years from now, but it's a savings to the township of $38,000, and that's
For 15, every year for 15 years.
Yep, no, and it's great, and I think that there comes a point where we need to look at this. The commissioners and the board need to look at some of these projects as a whole, and say rates they're not going to. You've said that after 9/11, rates are not going to stay this low forever. Yet 20 years later, they're still low. But when do we go ahead and take that out, knowing that we need this stuff done, we need these projects done, and now it gets better and better, but rates can't go to zero, although they are. But let's look at the bigger picture of maybe having to take a larger chunk of money out, and that was my question.
Rates are at the 60+ year low.
All right, Bob and Bill, let's look at some projects, those unfunded projects.
Mike, what did the 10-year do? Didn't today I see that it went up to the 2-year high today?
That's the treasury market. These are tax frees.
Right, but that is an indicator. That's an indicator of rates, right?
That's right. And
so
munis,
what's the treasury? What's the treasury go to today?
I don't know, but munis will look around, take their time, and eventually they'll follow suit. But even if they move up, they'll move up from the 60-year low to the 50-year low. So they're gonna stay in a range. The Federal Reserve has said that they're not anticipating anything very active for quite a long time, maybe through the end of this year, maybe even into next year.
And that you believe that'll be the case even with the trillions of dollars of printed money that the Fed is putting into the economy at this point? You still think that we'll be able to keep the rates?
I only said for a year,
years, or at least in the next few weeks.
I only said for a year. And luckily, when you sell fixed rate debt, that issue is protected against future increases. Future issues of bonds are not protected, but each issue you sell is at a fixed rate.
So I guess you're recommending to act quickly in case it does rise due to the increased money supply.
I don't remember the last time I said to act slowly, ever.
All right, well, good. That's consistent.
Is there any additional commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment?
Just a quick note. Oh, excuse me. Just a quick note on our debt capacity that the township's electoral debt is approximately $51 million. And that's about half of what we're legally able to borrow. So just to give some idea of what the legal borrowing limit is, not that we ever want to get that high.
Is there any public comment?
I mean, it's more limited by your ability to repay than it is by state law.
Like a credit card, huh?
Kind of, yeah.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item 3D, ordinance number 2021-02, approving a 3-year lease for the Philadelphia Area Independent School Business Officers Association, PISBOA, for a portion of the Radnor Township Municipal Building consisting of approximately 1,500 square feet. This is the adoption. I will so move. Is there a second? We talked about this in pretty good detail last time, so I'm going to open it up to commissioner comment.
I will start. I have just one question or concern. Bill, I know that we spoke about this. You know, it's like they get their mulligan, they get their, all right, we want to reduce space. They have a 60-day window to do that. We honored it. I think going forward, if they want any kind of pullout or if they're gonna move, I think we need to change that to 6 months. I just, you know, it's fine. I get it. There's COVID. We need to be good landlords and everything, but going forward, if they do need any other kind of change in the agreement, it should be 6 months. So we as a board have more time to figure out, is it worth keeping them? Should we look? Should we do it, et cetera? So whatever is in that agreement, you know, I'll let you talk about this, Bill, but I think that maybe we should consider making an amendment. Bill.
Yep. So the agreements we've had with them through the years has always had a 2-month cancellation clause or get out clause. We talked to them informally. If the board wants to pass a motion to make that 6 months, I don't think that'll be a problem on their end. Again, they're not looking to leave. They're happy being tenants here. And as I said 2 weeks ago, they are fantastic tenants to have in the building. So they're intending on seeing out the 3-year term as it's stated. So they did not have an initial issue with the 6-month term if we wanted to amend it to include that.
I would like to make a motion then to change that from 60 days to 6 months.
Heard the motion for amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of majority.
I don't get it.
Is there any additional commissioner comment? Is there any
If they
staff
were to
comment?
leave, would all of the sports memorabilia leave with them?
Huh.
So that's a different agreement. That's with the Delaware County Sports Museum.
Okay.
Is there any additional staff comment?
No.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-2. Moving to item 3E, appointments to boards and commissions. I will move for the appointment of Jane Golis to the Design Review Board for an unexpired term ending December 31st of 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I will move for the appointment of Alex Yiannopoulos to the Board of Health for an unexpired term ending December 31st of 2021. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving to item 3F, motion to direct staff to apply for a Keystone Communities Program grant to secure the services of a business district planner to inform local initiatives such as the growth and stability of neighborhoods and communities, social and economic diversity, and a strong and secure quality of life. The program allows communities to tailor the assistance to meet the needs of its specific revitalization effort, specifically for the Wayne Business District. The direction would also approve collaboration with Villanova University for grant writing and advocacy support. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa, this was your request. Could you tell us a little about this?
Sure. So, this grant in conversations with Villanova about different things, and certainly the idea of a business improvement district, which is something that, I know I've mentioned several times before. We've actually talked to some people who have experience with that, like Skip Kunda and whatnot. He has provided, information. That is something that, I think that the township should look at and move forward with, at least exploring with some of our businesses. And what that might look like, I think, can be informed by having a planner come in and provide some guidance, work with the Wayne Business Association, work with some of our, larger retail establishments, work with our, universities. We have a lot, and also our, larger business owners. I mean, this would be something that would encompass an area beyond just, I think, what people consider to be downtown Wayne. I remember when Matt Marshall was on the board, he always talked about, kind of the business corridor. And that's certainly kind of running from the border of Bryn Mawr and Radnor, all the way down to, I guess, Stratford, where TE starts. So, it, I think, behooves us to at least attempt to get somebody that would be able to help provide some guidance. And again, not only in providing an assessment, but I think help us with a process. If we wanted to put something like that together, and what could that look like? And what can we do also in the short term to help us with some of the things that I know concern everybody around the business district. I have, talked to Villanova about this on multiple occasions. They have, acknowledged their interest in engaging in this. And, at one point I said, it would be cool to get a grant or something like that. They provided me with some information about various state grants we might be able to get in order to, get this process going, because we don't have anything like that in our budget. So they came forward with this idea, and I am putting it out there as, as an option that the township might be able to go and seek the grant funding. Now, it is a matching grant. I believe that it is up to potentially $25,000. I don't think we would need that much, but you certainly go into a grant and you ask for, I think, the maximum, and hope that you get somewhere near that. And I think that we could utilize those funds in order to, start a process that others have, talked about in the past, and something that we could, use to address concerns, again, in the short term and the long run. So that's why I bring it forward. If we needed help and support, Villanova has offered the assistance of their grant writing professionals, which would, be sort of, I guess, kind of a gift in kind. If we look at the gift acceptance policy that we approved several months ago, and also offered, any assistance that they can, around advocacy. If that's something that, we can benefit from. It certainly helps to have, when you're going after state grants like this, to have many voices advocating for you. Certainly we would engage, I think, our local legislators as well. So it's certainly, and I, being fully transparent, wanting to, to acknowledge and also, understand that Villanova has offered this support. That is why that is in there as well. So that's the thought.
Excellent. If I could just pick up on where you left off, Commissioner Boraski, I'll fully support this, and we'll get behind any and all parties that are looking to get behind a process like this. Our world has fundamentally changed, and long before COVID, I think that the residents and the business owners of Radnor Township, Wayne, Stratford, certainly Garrett Hill, have seen a change in the way that we look at retail, a change in our ability to attract the right mix of retail, of restaurants, of hospitality, and hotels to Radnor Township. Rents continue to go through the roof. And the ability to attract the right mix, I think, is in fierce competition with King of Prussia. Every day, the Ardmore, Bryn Mawr, Rosemont area continues to develop and seek new ways of attracting development. We see development that's going to be happening up the road in the whole Handles neighborhood in Berwyn, TE. Clearly, other communities are seeing this and addressing it. And if we think that we as a board or we as a township have the answers readily available, I think that we're wrong. I think that we need support like this. We need partnerships with people like Villanova University that have shown a very vested interest and have put resources forth in terms of partnering with restaurants, with retail, to lend their support in driving business throughout the community and making it the right place, not just for Villanova, but for other schools as well. Complaining and saying that we ought to do things like encourage real estate developers to have smaller signs, and we should be concerned about how we look to neighboring communities with big for rent signs up. That is putting lipstick on a pig. That's not where the problem lies. It's not a long-term solution. And I think that putting forth a type of partnership like this, with available resources to go after the right type of grants and support, and showing that we as a board of commissioners have a vested interest in long-term planning for Radnor Township and for the various business districts, including Garrett Hill, is the right mix. And we should be all in support and fully united in terms of going forward on this.
Thank you, Damian, for mentioning Garrett Hill. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to leave them
out. I'll say this. So I don't have a problem getting a grant, but we should not get any kind of money from Villanova or any other third-party entity, because it just is going to convolute the gift act later down the road. Their help, it is basically a gift an in-kind gift. And Villanova's in front of the board every year and a half, 6-12 months, and even further development. I know they want to put a new student center in by the Gateway. And I just don't think that taking a gift of, what is it? I mean, it's a page grant. What does it take? 10 hours at what, $75 an hour to ask to really convolute things for $750. I just think that, we need more. If they're going to help us out, we need to ask more. This is pretty much a small ask, and it's an immaterial ask. We have lawyers, we have engineers, they all know how to write grants. Why are we asking Villanova for a $750 gift? Again, I think that they're, in certain aspects, they help the township, no doubt. In other aspects, I think, they take away. In general, I think the township doesn't perceive too much of a net gain from them, probably a net loss in my opinion. I will say, so I would be for it if we stricken that from that resolution. And then, so I will make a motion in a minute. But I just have a question. So it's 25,000 matching for 25,000. It's 50,000. Is that a one-time survey, or is that going to be ongoing over a year? I guess, is that to Commissioner Borowski, or is this like a full-time job, or is this like a, like a quick little consulting gig?
Well, I think that part of the development of the grant is the grant request. Those things would be fleshed out. I mean, I don't think it's a job. I think it's more of a consulting, and, others, can certainly have their opinion. I think it's more of a consulting opportunity and
Okay.
a report that would be issued, something that
Okay,
can
sure.
provide
So
it's not a position.
okay, no, it just reminds me of like the Garrett Hill overlay. So they'll come out with some kind of plan and presentation and say, this is what we recommend. Okay, that's fine. The one thing that I will kind of agree and disagree with Commissioner Enderle, the reason why there's so many vacancies in Radnor or in Wayne and in Garrett Hill and in Bryn Mawr, and I drove up and down Lancaster Avenue today. I'm looking for new space. I'm a small business owner, as you know. Is the rents are too high, and that's the start of it. Maybe
I mentioned that. I agree with you.
Okay, yeah,
I mentioned that as
sure.
part
No,
of
and
what
like I
was
said, I'm
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
disagreeing with you.
Yep.
But that's the bulk of it. I mean, I'm not going to start a business or move a business where I can't afford the rent.
Yeah,
As
if you're
part of
paying
that,
$14,000 a month or something.
yeah, well,
for
I
a
mean,
small
it's
business,
not sustainable. Is it maybe because our property taxes are too high? Maybe. I mean, I don't know, but it's it's an issue of supply and demand. It's an issue of economics. I agree, Commissioner Enderle. You can't put a for rent. You can't say we don't want to put a for rent sign on a building, because I mean, it's like saying I don't want to put a for sale sign outside of my house. It's not getting to the point. There are issues like parking. The parking helps it helps the restaurateurs. It doesn't help the retail. The retail's closes at 6 or 7. The restaurants do most of their business after 6 or 7 when the meters go off. So there's a lot of little things that I think that we as a Board of Commissioners could flesh out with the Wayne Business Association if they want to do that. But I think that you need to look at the big picture of no one's going to start a business with $30 a square foot triple net. I mean, no one.
I agree with you. I think that's just part of the mix, though. What we're saying is there's a number of different factors. I mean, you take a look at the Wayne Business Overlay District and the things that are laid out in there. Is that really is that viable long term? And what do we want? What do we want? Wayne to look like, and what are we competing against? These are all things that I think throw into the mix, and I agree with you.
No. And like I said, I agree with you. We're dealing with like outdoor dining in Garrett Hill. I mean, something is a dinosaur, and it's got to get changed. So, I mean, we agree. So there's no sense arguing. Like I said, I do believe that, asking Villanova to do give us a $750 in-kind gift convolutes things going forward. It's not a drop in a bucket, it's a drop in the ocean. So I would move and make a motion to strike that last line of asking Villanova or any institution, be it public or private, to help us out with a grant when we have lawyers on retainer that could do that. So I'm going to make that motion to strike that last line.
Well, can I just make a point, Sean, and
Absolutely.
certainly keep your motion on the table.
Sure.
One of the things that would be nice if we had the assistance, I know we have grant writer, or someone who writes our grants within the township. But this is kind of an added, kind of outside the box request. It's also due April 2nd. So
Okay.
it's due pretty quickly if we want to get it in for this round. So it might be something that is not going to fit into what is currently happening on the plate of the township. So I think the offer from Villanova to, lend, have a grant writer from, which is what they do all the time. They have people on staff who do nothing but this to help us. I mean, certainly they wouldn't write it and they wouldn't submit it or whatnot. They would, could draft it up, maybe work with the township, get some parameters, get some ideas of what it could look like, put it together for us, give it back to the township for, Bill and Steve and anyone, to look at and review and provide feedback. And it might just be helpful in that way so that, it isn't an undue burden and that we can maybe get it in. And they have offered that opportunity. No one asked them. They offered it because ultimately Villanova everyone will benefit if we can. Everybody wants a vibrant community, right? And certainly our universities are trying to attract students here, want that as well. And I think that that's a mutual benefit to everyone. So, before everyone wants to vote to pull this out or, and I'm not trying to scuttle your motion.
No,
I'm
no.
just saying
No,
that
no.
that was one of the considerations as to why, they offered it. And I thought that it might be nice because if we're going to do this, I don't know that the township has the time or the bandwidth right now.
So I just want to say a couple things. Thank you, Lisa. No, I'll caveat by saying I'm not always against Villanova. I voted for for that gift and allowing the 15,000 in give backs when they built their the last vote that came to the board when they had the 38,000 square feet for their engineering building. I voted for it. I just think that this convolutes it. John Rice and Bill White and Bob Tate. I think that they could find someone to write a grant. It's a page or two. It's not that difficult. If we're going to ask them for help, but let me
Have you ever applied for a DCED grant? It's not a page or two.
As much as I love the staff
let me hold
Radnor,
on.
it is an
Please don't
intense
interrupt.
process.
Please don't interrupt. But
You've had a lot. You've been on the mic a lot tonight.
yeah,
Sean.
that's what a board of commissioner meeting is about. So please.
Guys, I'm going to ask you and remind you all, let's be civil. Sean, you have the floor for now. Please keep your comments short. We have heard a lot of this before.
I'm just responding to what was said against me. No, so John Rice, do you have people in your office that could write a grant?
No.
No, or Bill, is there people that that could write a grant for $1,000 or something along those lines? So it doesn't convolute a possible in-kind gift.
Yeah, going out and finding someone to write grants probably is not that difficult, and it's something that could be done. It sounds like we have a university here in town that's willing to help us. I'm not sure we'd want to turn them down for that. Just from the staff's perspective, our emails get pinged just about every day with grant opportunities for various things, this and that. And I think it was mentioned earlier, and I apologize who mentioned it, but they were right on. It comes down to, the staff's working to install projects and respond to emails and doing, all of the other day-to-day activities. There's very little additional bandwidth for, being proactive on the grant front. We have, Melissa in the finance department does a fantastic job of accounting for and tracking and doing the reporting on the grants that we do have, but that does not leave the time for, going out and finding grants and filling out the applications. In fact, most of the projects where we get grants to help pay for them, we are including the cost of applying for those grants in the cost of the engagement. For example, last meeting, we approved some additional funds for the engineers over at Fenimore, and included in that was writing 2 additional grants. So from a staff resource perspective, there's, it's one area we'd love to go 100 miles an hour in. It's just that the reality is that the day-to-day activities of doing what's already in front of us consumes that time. So these types of grants, which, I know I don't get a vote here, but I think this is a great idea and the timing is good given where we're at economically. It's difficult for us to grab it and run with it.
All right, well, I will end by saying this. I'd like to make two motions. Number one, the second to last line, add after the Wayne Business District, the Garrett Hill District, or the Garrett Hill Business District. And I would make a second motion to strike the last line. The direction would also approve collaboration with Villanova University grant writing. So those are the two
Let's take
motions
those
that I have.
seriatim. I will
Second.
ask for a second for the first question, which was to add Garrett Hill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
All opposed, nay. Proposed amendment passes 6-0. For the second one, striking the last line, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of majority. Is there any additional commissioner comment on this?
Yeah, that we should have had some more comment on that. We don't need to have Villanova involved with this concept of for one thing, we already have Wayne Business Overlay District, so we have zoning for business. And we also talked about and have a gateway enhancement trust in the past. And this is really kind of a gateway type of thing that we talked about. It would be best not to have people who would be requested to contribute as part of that, at least in the planning stages. I feel it'd be best to keep that separate. And certainly we write a lot of grants, so we could find somebody to write the grants. So I'm not concerned about that.
We just voted on this. Is there anything
Haven't
new?
we voted on this?
I would also say that we should look at really what our business employment numbers are. So maybe in this latest official statement that we have, I want to check the employment. We've had some big businesses come in. We've lost some small businesses, but maybe the big businesses make up for it. I don't know the answer to that. Bill might know. But we lose companies like Brandywine and their headquarters. That's devastating. Lockdowns have a lot to do with losing some of these businesses. And that's not something that we did. What we do have in our control is parking and tax policy, and those make a heck of a difference to these businesses as well. So it's not all just get a planner and spend money and have him come up with something. It really does come from these people on this board who are elected, and we really can make more of an impact than what I think we're giving each other credit for.
Okay, is there any staff comment?
Just real quickly, in response to the official statement numbers, the problem with those is that they're lagging usually by at least a year. They come from the comprehensive annual financial statement, and the last numbers we had are from 2019. So, those are going to need at least another year to cycle through what's happened during the pandemic. So, someone who has immediate access to that kind of information would be valuable.
Who compiles that?
We compile it through our tax records.
Okay.
But again, it's always lagging.
But how do you get the employment numbers? Is that on the tax form?
Yeah, each employer is required to remit the local services tax from all their employees.
Yeah, that.
So that's the source of the data there.
Okay, is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the amended motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Okay.
Motion passes, looks like 5-2. Moving on to item 3G, motion to direct the township solicitor to enter an appearance on behalf of the township and oppose the zoning application number 3088. The applicant BDN 250 King of Prussia 1 LP. Food and Zone PLO Planned Laboratory Office. The applicant is seeking a variance from section 280-64 spot C to permit Romanet 1 a setback of 43.39 feet plus or minus opposite King of Prussia Road 2 and Romanet 2 a setback of 17.17 feet plus or minus opposite Radnor Chester Road. A variance from section 280-64 spot B to allow a building/structure area of 42.4% plus or minus. A variance from section 280-64 spot B to allow a landscape area of 27.8% and any other relief deemed necessary for the project. Commissioner Booker, this is your proposal, so let us know what your thoughts are.
Thank you very much. This is something that was raised last meeting, looked into the request for this zoning hearing from BDN 1, BDN King of Prussia 1 LP. I did get a copy from Mr. Kachansky and to find out what the project was. The project is for the construction of a parking structure. It's hard, I couldn't really tell the exact dimensions, but it's somewhere around 40 feet high, 300 feet in length, 140 feet wide, about 200 spots, plus or minus. And so it struck me as a major project that that we need to really understand, especially because it was going straight to zoning hearing. And at the time we found out about this, there was not on the docket a period of review for planning or land development. So when I talked to our staff about this, I was informed that this project was deemed or was potentially a project that the applicant believed would not be part of land development. And as such, it would not have been required to go to the planning and have that reviewed. And I was very concerned about that. In addition to that, as you noted in the introduction, this site is already very overbuilt. The site, they are requesting to have 72.2% impervious coverage on the site, and the code requires that 45% be landscaped. So it's well over the allowed impervious, and it's also well over the building coverage of the lot area, which is 30%, and they're requesting 42.2%. So those are both major concerns in this very congested area, especially in light of the massive project that was recently approved at 145 King of Prussia Road. So in addition to that, with all this new parking for the 250 site, we didn't have any traffic data. So we have to recall the Penn facility had about 890 surface spots, and then it added about 1,400 more, and this would be 200 more on top of the 300 or so, 350 or so, for a total of 550 spots at the new location. I'm sorry, not at the new location, at the old location of 250 King of Prussia Road. So all of those were a concern, and that's why, especially in light of the fact that this was something that the applicant had indicated that they did not believe needed to go to land development. So I brought this issue up to oppose this development, and so that we could be at the planning, so we could be at the zoning hearing board, which had originally been scheduled for last night or last week. Since that time, I've been informed that the applicant now does agree that this is a project that's subject to land development. Is that correct, Mr. Brosman?
Good evening, George Brosman. Yes, Mr. Booker.
And that you are scheduled to go before planning for the March 1st Planning Commission meeting?
Our understanding was that we would go to March 1st for the Planning Commission review of the zoning application. Then we would go to the zoning board, and if we got relief from the zoning board, then we would go back to the Planning Commission and come to you for land development review.
Right. So that's my understanding as well. And the zoning hearing right now, you're scheduled for March 18th. Am I correct?
Yes,
And we have another meeting on March the 8th. So in light of those circumstances, I would move the table, if it pleases the board, move the table this motion, and we can hear what planning has to say, and then take this up again if necessary on March 8th. If I could get
I'm
a
sorry,
second
when
for
is the
that.
zoning hearing?
Say again?
When is the zoning hearing scheduled for?
Zoning hearing would be March the 18th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-1. Okay, in that case, let's move to item 4, reports of standing committees. Do we have any reports?
So I'll just quickly report out on the library. They had a board meeting last Thursday. And I just wanted to let everyone, the board know, if you haven't already received it, I asked at that meeting if the executive director, Joyce Platfoot, would start sending her president's report to the Board of Commissioners for everyone to see. Bill, I also asked that she copy you, just so you guys can see, and kind of be kept in the loop of what's happening at the library, especially as we, move forward with, funding discussions or whatever like that. So I just thought that would be helpful. So if that comes to you, I did ask for that, and the library board agreed that that would be a good idea. So they will be doing that. And the other thing I think that's pretty exciting is that as of today, they just have gone back to people being able to come in and browse. Before they were doing appointments only. And, for small periods of time, people could schedule an appointment to come in and pick a book and go out. Well, they've opened it up, certainly with the restricted numbers and things like that. And I know they've been working with our Office of Emergency Management around a lot of that stuff. So they are open for browsing, for people to come in and again, look at books. People can't stay, people can't hang out, people can't, sit and whatnot like, you used to, but at least that is another step towards, I guess, a little bit of normalcy. And they are still doing their contactless pickup also as well for people that are concerned about going into the library. So they are moving forward, and I think they've been doing a really great job of kind of navigating through all of the restrictions and everything, and doing a really good job in keeping staff and the community safe. So I just wanted to share that with the board.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any new business?
Just quickly, I'd like to once again acknowledge and commend our Radnor police on their great investigative work in working with St. Catherine's last week to put together the right mix of detective work and undercover operations to apprehend a thief who had been targeting the collection boxes at St. Catherine's, and I believe was suspected and has admitted a role in break-ins of similar collection boxes in area Catholic churches. So just great work by Radnor Police. They also had to contend with apprehending this perpetrator during pickup time in the afternoon at St. Catharines. So there was a lot of activity, but yet they were able to make it all work seamlessly, not put a shock into the community, and just get the job done. So great work by Radnor Police.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any old business?
I had an item. So I had requested of you, Jack, and to Bill, a review of our tax matters with respect to the township taxes. Specifically, I think we've all heard many of our taxpayers have received their latest bills for both the township and the county, and many of them are 20, 30, 40, 50, as high as 60% increases. And so the question has been, what are the factors driving that? And not to put any blame on the township, because the township has a revenue neutral millage rate. We cut our rate almost totally, it was completely in half. And so the total amount of dollars coming to the township is the same, yet many of our taxpayers are seeing quite a disparity, not the 5 or 8% we talked about in the past, but much higher than that. The 5 or 8% increase relating to the relative shift in value from commercial to residential that we've talked about in this meetings before. So I wanted to go through some of that. Bill's given me a pretty extensive write-up here that I'm looking at, and would like to have that item covered for the next meeting, because it's something I think it's important that our people understand. The township is not the driver of the increases. There are other factors that are, and to the extent that we can provide some clarity on what those factors are, I think it behooves this board and our staff to do that for the public. And to the extent we can't, we should say that we can't tell what's causing that. But that's something that I'd like to have on for the next agenda, and something that the school district has put a letter out in August saying that this could happen. So we need to coordinate with them and understand what are those drivers, because a lot of people are going to have a significant shortage in their escrows for their mortgages when those tax bills come due. And so they'll have to make up their prior escrow and then the increase. And some people could have a major shock on their mortgage and on their escrows with their mortgagor. So something I think it's something that we should talk about and make sure that we provide the information that we have available to us to the public.
That's fine with me. I want to clarify that I don't recall us ever having said that there was going to be a 5 to 8% increase in people's taxes. We said that there was a 5 to 8% shift in the total obligation as between residential and commercial properties. But that obviously doesn't get down to a granular level in terms of who's going to pay what from house to house to house. And 5% of the overall of the aggregate that we get as a township is not the same as the increase in any individual person's home. If you're paying 5% of what we get in property taxes on your home, you're in a world of trouble right now. But otherwise, yeah, that's fine. We can do that the next
Well,
meeting.
I didn't understand the last part, but again, the inference from the 5 to 8% shift in relative value was that people expected that there would be some shift in the residential, but they're seeing far greater than that amount. And I think what you meant is, or what you said is that the relative shift from commercial to residential affects individual taxpayers differently. And I understand that. However, what I'm referring to is, what are the individual factors, not the individual taxpayer, the factors that could cause individuals to have a 50% higher tax rate. And that's important to people.
So been having this discussion, Rich, to your point, not, I think, the specifics of why somebody's tax bill is what it is, but the discussions around this and the concern. And we had talked about, the school, what the school district was doing. And we had talked about, do we want to join in with them? I don't know that we've ever heard anything more back from them. John, have they decided to proceed? I mean, I know they were doing, I think, challenging a lot of the assessments, if I recall correctly, but did they ever decide to do anything in a blanket way that we can join in with them?
No, after the last discussion, we had a discussion, or Joel Steinman in my office had a discussion with the district, and they were not going to file any kind of an appeal from the Board of Assessment ruling that upheld the validity of the countywide reassessment. So as of the end of January, and we've gotten more since, as of the end of January, we received 65 Board of Assessment appeals by the school district. 43 were commercial properties, 22 were residential. So what the school district's doing is, instead of challenging the overall methodology, is they're challenging individual commercial properties and some residential that they think are undervalued. The numbers that the school district gave us, and they looked at it, was that the burden that formerly was on residential properties was about 79.8% of the tax burden. That increased to 84.4%, about 5% under the 2020 assessment. So, but the district is not pursuing any type of major litigation. They are doing a property by property assessment. We've also received, since the end of January, early February, we received, I'll say, another 20 or 25 appeals by residential property owners and by some commercial property owners. So the Board of Assessment is going to be very busy. I'm sure it's happening in every municipality, but that's really the update from the last time we had this discussion. There was no litigation that they're going to pursue at this time.
And I think that residents need to know there's a very clear process for challenging their assessment. I know I've had some of my residents, some of my people in my ward who've reached out, and I've referred them to the county. So there's a very clear process for doing that. I don't think it will help with this year's tax bills, unfortunately, but moving forward. So, and that's on the Delaware County website. For people who wanted to find out more information about that. I can send it, Bill. I wonder if it's something, Rich, if you feel like there's many people that might benefit from this. Maybe it's something that, I don't know if the township posted anything about that, since this isn't really our process. It has to be initiated by the residents at this point.
Well, again, the issue, and that's a separate issue, I think, and everyone is always entitled, every year you're allowed to appeal your assessment. And everyone, that's a right to everyone. It can avail themselves of at any time, and that is a process through the county. What this specifically is, in light of the school district's prior actions and their letter to the community saying that the school district brought this up and said that we could see 30 to 50% tax increases. And they wrote a letter to it's still posted on their website in August. So obviously they had a sense that our residents, that this could happen. So the question is, what was the rationale for the school district citing a 30 to 50% tax increases and calling it unfair and inequitable? And what was their basis for saying that? And what caused that to actually come to fruition and to make that information available to the constituents? I guess if you're saying, Lisa and Bill, that you don't know what the answer is and don't want to address it, I guess that would have to suffice. and we could say, you have to appeal on your own. But my sense of it is that we have an idea of what the issues are and what the elements that cause this disparity, and that we could talk to that issue for the constituents so they could understand it's not the township increasing their taxes. The township taxes are the same. It's the reallocation based on the process. And that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I don't have a problem putting this in front of people. This is a fairly simple issue. There's the old aggregate assessment value of the township. There's the new aggregate assessment value of the township. There's your old fair market value, and there's your new fair market value. Your old fair market value being modified by the step ratio. We can clarify all of that for people. Honestly, what you end up paying has very little to do with what the businesses are paying. A little, but fundamentally the big driver is going to be what your assessed value was for your house and how it's changed over time. But Bill, if you want to put together a presentation, this is frankly straightforward enough that I feel like we should be able to keep it to 5 minutes, and we'll do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to put a presentation together, or like a little public service announcement on how the township arrived at its millage rate for 2021, how it achieved revenue neutral based on the aggregate change in the assessed valuation for the township. So
that would be great. And anything that we can cascade off of that. In other words, let's develop it for the least common denominator, which I would count myself in.
Yeah, I mean, in real simple terms, if your assessed value doubled, you at 50%, basically 50%, you broke even with our new millage rate. If your new assessment went up by more than 50%, then your taxes are going up accordingly.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the last time your house was assessed, and how much it's moved, how much the market has moved it over the years. I mean, it's being that it's been 20 years since the last reassessment was done. If there's been no major improvements to the house,
I understand it. I'm just coming at it as a marketing and communications professional, not a tax attorney like my fellow commissioners. Okay, so we need to be able to. Well, I'm just saying we need to be able to break this down, and anything that you can provide and put in my hands that helps break this down. For, again, the least common denominator, and not a CFO level, which I consider you at, and you are, that would be awesome. That would be something that we can cascade and to Commissioner Booker's point, really help communicate.
Right.
We'll get to work on that right away.
Yeah, and the areas we talk about, it's a shift in value, whether that's old homes to newer homes. I mean, but most people's houses were assessed 20 years ago in 2000. And so most people don't get an interim reassessment, and everyone's getting a new bill, and a lot of them are high. So if we could talk to that, I think that would be helpful. If we can't speak to it, then let's say we can't speak to it, and here's why. And
here's the resources you can go to.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, hold on, Bill. So with that being said, and let me piggyback on what Damien said, and let me give Commissioner Borowski props on her great 452, I think, Roberts Road presentation. I know that, so are you going to have a bite-sized piece that you're going to video record and we can put on our, because Kevin Kachansky did a wonderful job explaining the land development process when it came to zoning. I mean, if he could put that down, dumb it down for me, 5 minutes, a decision tree, it goes at here or here, and then here and here. That was a great tutorial. So any of these little bite-sized tutorials, as you said, and especially with Officer Kachansky, or Enforcer Kachansky, I don't know the correct title of his. Director, pardon me, I don't want to sell him short. Director Kachansky. No, I think that's great. And once Molly gets that new website up, it'll be great, easy for us to share stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, snackable content.
Yeah, share stuff and direct our constituents that have questions to it when we just can't type the whole thing there. So yeah, wonderful. And I think that'd be a great addition, Bill.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Bill.
No, I appreciate it. That's good direction. We'll get going on it right away.
Do we have any other old business?
Can I just, I would like to just address the issues around the public works and how hard they've been working. Our crews are facing snowstorms while they're doing recycling and trash, and Bill's laughing because I'm after him most days. I have some elderly residents and just other residents who are have been really inconvenienced and hard to figure out the schedules, and the crew has gone back to pick up recycling from somebody who got missed. And they just continue to go above and beyond. And I know that the crews are practicing incredibly safe COVID protocol. So if one member has any either test positive or even thinks they've been exposed, the entire crew will be taken off and allowed to quarantine for their safety. And I really appreciate that that is being done around the township, not only for the health and safety of our own crews, but also for the whole community. I know it's just been a really, really heavy lift. And I'm just so grateful to Mike and everybody at Public Works, and Bill, you've been jumping in just to respond to residents. And it's been tough, and I really appreciate the hard work and dedication.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the sentiment. Yeah, and as we've gone through the last month of pretty much nonstop snow and winter weather events, we've learned a lot in communication, and we'll continue to get better at that. Some game time decisions were made late last week with some of the recycling pickups. So some were communicated better than others, and then obviously where we fell a little short, we heard about it, and folks let us know immediately that we did not communicate correctly. So we'll fix those things going forward. But the Public Works do, and today police, I mean, this one got us quick and hard, and I think it caught a lot of people out on the street. So police were busy quite a bit today. But Public Works has been doing a fantastic job. They have been rather shorthanded through all of this because of the COVID protocols. And it is lengthened the time to get the things, and it's made the decisions tougher on, having to cancel recycling here or there or trash here or there. But to an employee, every single one of them have come in and have done the job that they've been asked to do. In fact, and I'll share this real quickly, it's been encouraging, at least from my perspective, that the folks required to quarantine because of close contact, they were the ones advocating for a way to try to shorten that quarantine window so that they could come back to work sooner, which I think is a great compliment to those guys and how seriously they take the work that they do. So, Mother Nature continues to test us every day, and we're lucky to have a crew like Public Works that rises up every time they need to.
Absolutely.
Thank you all, and thank you, Public Works. Moving to public participation. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, I will move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. We are adjourned.